Hey guys, Cassandra here with Opera for Black Folks, and today I'm going to be talking about the audition process and why it can be so difficult for singers to experience, or why it can be good, but let's jump in. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about the audition process because I wanted to share something that was really awesome that happened to me. I got to audition for the Metropolitan Opera House in January. In fact, it wasn't just the Metropolitan Opera, that was kind of like the cherry on the cake, or the cherry on the top. I actually got to, in quick succession, perform or audition for the Washington National Opera, the American Spiritual Ensemble, as well as the Metropolitan Opera. It kind of happened boom, 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 right one after the other. And it felt like such an achievement and accomplishment because I actually enjoyed the process. It was the first time I can actually say I was standing in the room feeling joyful in the expression of my art and feeling confident in what I delivered. And so I wanted to kind of dig a little deeper into that, because that does not happen right away. Like auditioning, usually the audition process is this experience of, at least for me, it's an experience of like death to my confidence. I don't have any, like I lose all belief in myself, and everything that I've practiced or have not practiced is like gone, you know? And it's like as if I'm standing there vulnerable and naked and they're judging me. The judgment is so intense. And you know, I talked about this in my last video of why a lot of artists don't continue to pursue art as a career, or to put themselves out there for the career, is because there's so much judgment. It's got so many layers to it, especially because art is subjective. At least in the classical arts, there are definitely levels that the classical arts require, that, you know, you're speaking and singing in a specific style. You're speaking and singing with a true Italian accent or a German accent or a French accent, and you're putting the stresses in the right places and things like that. Like those are all things that we have to study when we're learning other languages, and to perfect those things when it comes to the audition process, because the audition process to me has been, up until I guess this past January, and maybe still in a lot of ways, but it's not a performance. It feels like a job interview, and it is. I'm auditioning for these people because I want them to hire me. I want them to say, you're our girl, you're gonna be perfect. But art is subjective. It's kind of like deciding what color shade of blue matches your skin tone. And that could be a wide variety. Like that can mean so many different things to so many different people. They may be like, oh, I like that shade of blue, but not that shade of blue. And I want just a little bit more blue in the blue and a little less, I want lighter or darker. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the artist or all those other different variations of blue, but it can be taken very personally because somebody doesn't like your shade of blue. That's what makes the auditioning process so difficult. It's learning to separate what you create as a separate entity and to not take that stuff personally. Like, this is my artistic self, and then this is my actual self. But it's very hard to differentiate those two things because my voice is physically in me. It's not like an instrument that I can take out and, you know, like play like a piano or a violin or any other instrument in the orchestra family. I can't, it's not separate from me. It is a part of me. And while my muscles and the way that they phonate together and create sound is completely as unique as the thumbprint on my finger, it still can leave a lot of emotional upset when somebody doesn't think that your uniqueness fits their vision of what they want for the stage. It doesn't mean that you're not a great singer or not a good singer. It just means it's not what they're looking for. But in that process, it's very difficult to differentiate between those things, because this is the other thing that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the fact that there's a lot of toxicity in the operatic community, and maybe in just music in general, like in all the other genres of music, maybe there's this toxicity that exists. I don't know, I haven't been in those genres, so maybe if you are, you can speak to that. I wanted to talk about the fact that in my development, there was toxicity baked into my growth without my even knowing. And so story time. I had this very famous voice teacher. She had a wonderful and amazing career. I won't say her name and share her name, but she definitely was an amazing singer. Like, even when I listen to her recordings today, I'm just like, damn, that woman could sing. But that didn't necessarily translate into being a really great teacher. For me, I think that the reason that she wasn't particularly a good teacher for me is because I don't think she really was on board with my development. I think my time with her, I was just sort of like a paycheck. I was just this kid that she needed to teach every week, and it didn't matter whether I was successful or not. It just was like a part of her. I wasn't a favorite. I didn't receive any special treatment. Not that a favorite necessarily should, but I don't really feel like I was getting a great education. I struggled every week as I tried to channel what was my natural ability into the classical arts of being an opera singer. Trying to channel that every week and learn how to do that from this woman who had clearly mastered it was a challenge, because she wasn't the most supportive, and she definitely had a judgmental teaching style, but it was shrouded in like niceties and joking and trying to make light. But she really just was sort of just dinging at me a little bit every week. And so I didn't know, because I was studying with this great teacher and I was young and I wanted to please her and I wanted to do well and I wanted to, sort of break the mold of what my family has grown into to date. Like, here I am, this child of immigrants, being like, great, we're in America because there's all this opportunity, and I have this opportunity to do something completely different that no one in my family has ever done before. I am breaking this mold because I have the blessing and the privilege of education despite my family's humble beginnings, and I want to make the most of this, and I have to succeed. Like, I had so much internal pressure on myself to be successful in this career that I really loved and that I had chosen, and was really listening to my father say, if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. And so I love singing. And I thought I wouldn't have to work a day in my life because I love this. That was further from the truth, but that's for another video. But I realized that I wanted to share a very traumatic experience that I had with this particular voice teacher. I spent 4 years studying with her, and she gave me a false sense of security that I was progressing and doing well, but she also was not, she didn't hold back her frustrations when I wasn't successful or when I wasn't getting a concept or what I didn't fully understand whatever she was trying to teach me. She would definitely express her frustration in all kinds of ways, and I don't know, I just kind of went with that. I just figured, like, this is what it is to study with a teacher. I was still very young. And so my very last lesson with her after I graduated from college, I decided to take private voice lessons with her in her home studio. I went to her home, and we were having a lesson, and we were moving through this vocal exercise, and she couldn't get me to sing high notes because I was struggling as a singer to figure out how to even do this. And even though she was trying to instruct me, it just wasn't getting in, and she didn't want to change the way she was instructing me to maybe help me get to that end goal. She just was very irritated every time I failed at singing this high note. And eventually she just stopped and said, "Oh my God, you should just quit singing. You have no courage. You don't have what it takes to do this career. Get out." And she kicked me out of her house. And I left like a dog with the tail between its legs. It was very traumatic, and it still hurts, even though I've made peace with it. But, I listened to her. I quit singing for like 2 years because I listened to this one woman's opinion of what she thought was working. It didn't dawn on me to get a second opinion because it just didn't. And it took me a while to recover from that. And it took me actually a really long time to get some of the baked in toxicity that she had implemented out of my head and out of my body and out of my beingness to believe in myself enough to actually continue to pursue the career of being a classically trained opera singer, to actually change my thinking. Because every single time I got up to perform and sing, I would hear her voice and all of her judgment. So it made it very difficult for me to move forward, because I had this experience of a teacher who had sort of baked in this judgment into my education that made it really difficult for me to believe in myself. The thing about singing is that you really have to get right with you, because the instrument is a reflection of who you are. So anything that you are feeling, thinking, processing, it comes out in your singing voice. Just like people can hear your emotion in your speaking voice, the same is true in the singing voice. If anything, it's amplified, and it's actually harder because you have to be way more vulnerable and open in order for the voice and air to move. Like, you can't have like when you're crying and you feel your throat close up and you're like, it's sort of like there's a constriction in the vocal cavity, or maybe you don't realize that, but that's what happens. And so if you're having sort of an emotional reaction, your body kind of like tenses up. That doesn't really work when you have to have an open and free throat and an open and free body when you're trying to express yourself and express your authenticity. And here I had this teacher who had she just was an irresponsible teacher. She was irresponsible with my beingness as a young singer. She didn't realize that her words carried weight and that words can hurt and cause harm. She didn't realize that throwing me out of her house that day robbed me of opportunities to seek out other teachers that could have helped. She could have easily have said, "I'm not the teacher for you to help you figure this out. Maybe it's time to move on." She could have used kindness, but instead she used judgment. And so while I watched other singers move forward in their careers because they had a voice that they could use, I watched other people, audition for, just watch them audition, and I couldn't even get there. I was too insecure and riddled with self-doubt to even open up my mouth and share this love that I have of performing and of singing and of music. She kind of robbed me of that for a couple of years. And I think that's, I think there are a lot of teachers out there like that. And as I made my way back into the music career and continue to pursue it, thankfully, I realized that there's a lot of that kind of toxicity that exists at least in the classical arts. I don't know if it exists in musical genres, as I said before, but it definitely stifles singers, because we're trying our very best to share our authenticity and vulnerability. And it's very difficult to share that authenticity and vulnerability when you feel constricted and tight physically because your emotions are taking over. Not that emotions are a bad thing, it's just that you've got to learn to work with them and ultimately have a really great sense of beingness in order to stand up in front of people to share who you really are. And so how did I go from quitting singing altogether to actually having an audition, and a successful audition, hopefully successful, at the Metropolitan Opera House? It took giving up other people's approval and starting down the path of cultivating what it means to believe in myself. It means studying with teachers that aligned with actually helping me grow with compassion and kindness and the knowledge to teach me. It meant that I had to replace the feelings of feeling sorry for myself to putting in feelings of self-worth and self-value, that I am enough as I am. And that as long as I put in the work, the actual systematic work, and become a disciplined performing artist and a disciplined a person who sits at that piano on a regular basis, there was no way I was going to improve. And so while auditioning still has the tendency to make my knees knock and make me feel a little insecure and butterflies in my tummy and, sweating from places I didn't know I could sweat, at the end of the day, I'm in a much better place now as a singer because I had to go through this journey of my own becoming, of learning to love and value myself and create a community of people that valued and supported me for who I really was and who I really am today. So auditioning for the Met and having fun at it was a huge accomplishment, a huge personal accomplishment. Not just because I'm singing at the Metropolitan Opera House, which is one of the best opera houses in the world, which is like amazing. Excuse me. But it was because I was actually in control of myself. I was in control of the emotions that I chose to share based on the art and the music. And it feels like whatever the feedback is from that panel of judges matters less because I'm more grounded in who I am and the value that I have to bring from my heart to your heart with singing. So fingers crossed that I actually do get hired at the Metropolitan Opera. It'd be so great. Oh my gosh. It'd be so great to get hired at any of the things I auditioned at. But it's also important to I just wanted to make this video to talk about that the audition process, while it is a job interview and while you are being judged and critiqued, that ultimately, and I don't know if this translates into like the corporate world, but maybe it does, is that you have to believe in yourself more than anything else. And sometimes we see people, like American Idol is great at that, like people who believe in themselves so much they think they have the greatest singing voice ever. They get up and they open their mouths and it's like, ooh, honey, somebody lied to you. It's not that they can't be better. It's just that they think that they're great as they are. And that confidence is actually really amazing. And we could all learn a lesson from people who are that confident. But there's also the work that goes into it. You have to do the work. You have to do the work of aligning emotionally, physically, and spiritually with yourself. And knowing that you are enough as you are to get out there and share what is your God-given gift and your creativity. And if you have people that want to throw or dump their toxicity on you because ultimately hurt people. I know now that teacher in school, she didn't really care about me. I know I was just a paycheck for her from week to week. At least that's what I believe. I think that she just didn't fit into what she didn't have a vision for. She didn't have a vision for what was possible for me, and she most definitely did not encourage me to be my authentic self and to find my true self. She was trying very much to pigeonhole me into being like other singers. She would tell me, oh honey, you look like Kathleen Battle. You should probably just sing her stuff. Let's have her sing. You just sing what she does. But Kathleen Battle, while she is an amazing singer, despite her personality, just because we're both black girls, black women, doesn't mean that we should do the same things. And whenever you have a person that's wanting to step on who you are and make you feel small and insignificant, then that's not the teacher for you. And if you are a performing artist like me and you're questioning how to move through the audition, like how to get grounded in being grounded into yourself, I'd say don't be afraid to open up to therapy. Don't be afraid to pull out a self-help book. Don't be afraid to seek out your tribe of people who are wanting to see you thrive, because that's important. You need your community to remind you of who you are when you go through the ups and downs, because there will be ups and downs. And you need people who love you to remind you of who you are when you have those awful auditions that make you feel all kinds of cross-eyed from wondering, did I do a great job? But what I find now is that I get less and less nervous in auditions because I trust myself. And I have a lot more fun now because I trust myself. The work never stops. In fact, success is just a byproduct of the work. So, yeah, that's my share for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, or subscribe to this channel. Please sign up for my newsletter below. The link is in the description notes below. And this is Opera for Black Folks, inspiring creativity through opera. I am a thriving artist, and I'll see you next week.